Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mediation and Beyond YouTube channel, all things relationships. And today I'm honored to have Lori Carpones, right? Carpenos?
Carpenos, yeah.
Carpenos. She's a licensed and marriage family therapist since 1985, so just a few years. She's got 2 years of postgraduate training in Innate Health, and she's also the 3 principles, which is also known as health realization. So we can talk about that. She's an international speaker and trainer. She also just informed me she has her own YouTube channel, so we can get the details on that at the end. She's the co-author of The Secret of Love, Unlock the Mystery, Unleash the Magic. We'll listen to more about that. She's the founder of Mystery School, interesting, a 6-week online course to explore innate health. She's passionate about people treating each other with respect and dignity. One of the reasons we have a lot in common on that, in spite of their differences and separate perspectives. And of course, differences in separate perspectives is like huge right now, right? With where our country is in, never mind just in like the work that I do or you do with people uncoupling and divorce work and stuff, but just what's going on in the society, you know, is there's so many separateness and so much division. But can you tell us, Laura? So thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Can you share with me like what got you even into innate health, and we'll start from there.
Great question to start with, Colleen. Thank you for inviting me to be on your show. Well, it was actually trying to help myself. I never planned to be a therapist, never planned to write a book, that's for sure. But I was an art teacher, and I was a troubled art teacher. I was not a happy camper in life. And I knew how to mask it and pretend, and so nobody knew. But I was pretty down and out and depressed and had nothing to be depressed about. I mean, my life looked like my peers and my friends, and but yet I had a lot of negative thinking going on. So I went into therapy myself. And I was living in San Francisco at the time. This was in the late 70s, early 80s. And San Francisco was like the hub for personal growth.
Right.
So we were reading everything imaginable, and I was attending lectures, and I was basically lectured out when friends said, oh no, you have to hear what Sid Banks has to say about mental health and well-being. And I basically had to get dragged because I had just, you know, I was up to here with all sorts of, how would I call it? Really techniques and ways to feel better. And I never felt better. And I have to tell you, I sat in, this was a 2-day, 4 hours a day seminar. I sat in the first day, and I have no idea. I could not tell anybody what struck me, but I was struck. I felt a level of relief that I don't think I ever experienced. So I knew I had to go back and understand what he was talking about. But it's not an intellectual understanding. That's the interesting thing, that I was trying to wrap my mind around the fact that we already are innately healthy. We're born healthy. You never see a baby, a child depressed. They cry, they're upset, they need something, and so they get that taken care of, the wet diaper or fed, and they're jovial and happy again. We're built to be resilient. And when I started to see what Sid Banks found, I don't know if you want me to say a bit about the
Yeah, absolutely.
He described this as 3 principles that, like PLES, that kind of a principle, like the principle of gravity, that's true for everybody, no matter where they are, no matter who they are. It's true for everyone that we have our separate individual perspective of things. given how we look out at the world, our worldview, how we think of things. And like you mentioned, the political division, well, each side can validate their side, just like two people in a relationship. Each person will just dig in their heels more to validate their perspective, how they're seeing things.
That
To them,
that they're right, right?
and it's because of these three principles: mind, thought, consciousness. It's like we each are shining the light of consciousness onto whatever we think. That's what makes it look like absolute reality. And so, you get two people and they come, I don't know, you probably have this experience. I talk about this with my co-author, that whenever we get a couple coming to us, inevitably he wants her to change and she wants him to change.
Which never works. Never works.
Now, can you imagine when a couple, even if they're getting divorced, now there's this term, getting a conscious divorce, doing it consciously.
Yeah.
If both parties say, we've gone as far as we can get, and there's no children to have to divide between us. It's kind of a simple, that was how I got divorced. That we didn't have children, we didn't have a lot of property, and so it was amicable.
Mm-hmm.
That's there for everybody. That's what I'm so passionate about, is that people, no matter how their relationship shifts and changes and morphs into whatever, it's still coming from an understanding that whatever looks real to us is not reality. It's only real to the individual. It's an individual separate reality that everybody lives in. And that was just, that just changed my whole world. I see that in everything, my work, my career, my everyday life with relatives, not just a romantic partner, but friends, relatives. If you can have that perspective that, hey, let me just listen to how this other person sees things without my own agenda, without me needing them to agree with me, just listen with pure consciousness, you might say.
Yeah, you've heard of Dr. Phil, right? So he always says on his shows I've seen, he calls them right fighters, where people are so stuck in being right. You can't hear the other person because you're too busy pointing out while they're speaking why you're right, instead of just honoring that person's perception. It doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be wrong. It just is. And if people could both align and with honor and dignity, like in kindness, you can move along parallel instead of this, instead of it, and it makes a difference.
Right. Yeah, exactly. What a difference to be curious about how the other person is seeing it, even though it's 100 miles from how you see it. Listen to that person. I'll often say in my sessions, listen to your partner as though, then it gets a chuckle, as though he or she is a Martian from another planet. And you don't know how their world is. They only know how their world is.
Yeah, I had a situation where I was in a relationship with somebody once, and I was trying to explain just my thinking and my thoughts, my heart, and the person said, "You're delusional," and I'm like, "I'm not delusional because I don't see it your way. I just want you to hear me. I don't have to be right, but just honor where I'm at. I honor where you at. I hear where you're at, and I don't expect you to think like me, but if you don't even hear me, if you have to label in a not kind way my thinking so that your thinking can be better or right, that is extremely painful for people to not be seen, heard, and validated. Doesn't mean you're right when you validate. That's another misconception, I think, right?
Right, right. I mean, we could say it's all delusional. It's all an illusion of our own making.
It is. It is.
And we don't intentionally make it. It's the stories we tell ourselves.
Yep, the narrative.
Those stories look so real.
Yes. And so you said so the first tier of the principles is consciousness. And then the second tier is, did you say God? Is that what you said earlier?
Oh, it's interesting. You heard God. Some people call it all God, call mine God, but it's not really a tier. They're all working together.
Okay. All right.
Of mind, and some people do refer to what Sid Banks called in psychological terms, capital M, mind, the source of everything.
Okay.
We're plugged into unlimited potential. I mean, just look at nature, and we're part of nature. I mean, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. If people could see that just by virtue of being here with the capacity to observe creation. And with that, we also have the ability to create a life for ourselves, given how we're looking out at life. So life is really happening through us, through the other two principles. So the creative source of everything, the unlimited potential, the intelligence. Really, when you think about this universe, there's such intelligence. I mean, you look at the natural world, it's just amazing how it operates, that.
It's mind-blowing, really, if you think about, I mean, the way it all comes together.
Yeah,
right?
and we're part of all that.
Yes.
And so why would we not, like you say, honor and hear the other person's perspective without judgment?
Yep.
That's key. People listen through a critical analysis that they don't even realize they're doing, because to them, it's a reality.
Right.
It's their reality, but their reality is full of judgment and criticism rather than just pure listening. Listen for understanding. Listen to understand where the other person's coming from. You don't have to agree with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People confuse that. They think, well, if they listen too much, they're going to start thinking that way. They don't want to. No, we have free will. You don't have to think anyway that somebody else is telling you to think.
Well, I think what happens is people get so defensive because I think people get busy trying to make their position. And so it puts the other person in a defensive mode because they're like, no, that's not what I'm saying. You're not hearing me. And that's not even what I said. That's the other thing too. I remember when I would do couples therapy and I would like, okay, can you repeat what your partner just said? What did you hear? And then I said to the partner, well, is that what you said? No, it's not. I didn't even say any of that. Like, people add in their own narrative in there, what they think that person's saying to them or what they really believe that their partner was really saying. And so listening is such an art. We all know how to talk. Like that, everyone knows how to talk, but people need, people need some tools for listening. It's not something we're trained.
Yeah, well, yeah. The best listeners are very young children because they don't have a lot on their mind. They don't have Sid Banks would call it contaminated thinking. They don't have their own thinking contaminating the purity of what they're hearing. And so it takes understanding. Is all it takes is gaining an understanding. And, that's what I'm devoting my life to, really helping, through the book, through my in retreats, and through wisdom school now, mystery school rather, which is really, you
Wisdom.
know, the wisdom of life, that how we operate, how we work in the world. Because when you understand mind, thought, and consciousness working for everybody, it gives people such a um, more, I don't want to say positive perspective, but it's really coming from love. It doesn't mean you have to be in love with the person, but it's coming from the space of love, which there is no division, there is no right and wrong, there's just different perspectives.
Right. There just is. Stop right there, right? There just is. This is what it is, right? Instead of trying to change what somebody thinks about what it is or how they feel. Well, what, you shouldn't feel that way. No, that's how I feel. Right. And so it's okay that I would feel that way. And you don't have to understand why I feel that way. Just honor that that's the way I feel. Be kind about it, right? Respectful. I think those are the elements that kind of get lost when people get defensive or they want to be right. You don't honor the other person. So it's mind, thought, and consciousness. So how is thought different than consciousness?
Yeah.
What is the difference there?
Well, the principle of thought is the ability to think.
Okay.
That we have this amazing capacity as humans to think about anything. And, thoughts just come. They just come to us. We're not looking for them. We're not planning to have them
Yep.
usually, like goal setting or something like that. But we're making a list. But typically in your day-to-day life, thoughts just come to you, and they're coming out of nowhere. Now, we have free will how much we buy into those thoughts. So when we're in a negative, a moment of negative thinking that's looking real to us,
Mm-hmm.
that's when we tend to collect more negative thoughts, because we're already in what we would call like a lower level of consciousness, where we're just seeing, what's wrong with this? It should be this way. It shouldn't, why are you saying that? It's not that, it's this. Well, if people get, first of all, if they understand that if they're feeling negative, it's not because of what's outside of them. It's because of the thinking that they're doing. Boy, does that shift the telescope around. Then people start looking within themselves rather than trying to change their partner, change the world, change their,
Right.
they're looking at within themselves. And, there's no need to be defensive then, because you realize, well, this is, it's okay if you don't see it the way I see it. And in fact, I'm curious about how you see it. That's what keeps relationships interesting and alive, when you're curious about how the other person is seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
It could be so far from the way you see it.
Which doesn't mean you have to change the way you see that. But it's interesting to explore somebody else's mind and heart, right? And how they got there. And then you say, oh, I could see how you got there. It doesn't mean I have to change, but I can now see and appreciate how you arrived where you arrived. And just that equalness, that honoring that one isn't better than the other. The balance of the seesaw, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you were asking about thought and consciousness. How does that play out? So, we're, each one of us is conscious of whatever is on our mind at the time. That's how we experience our reality, our personal reality. And when people understand this, and the understanding deepens over time. I mean, I've been around this since 1985. That was the first time I heard Sid Banks speak. He's no longer alive, but you can hear videos, um, so great that his lectures were recorded. Well, back in the 80s, I had to fly to wherever he was speaking. But now people can just hear it from the comfort of their own living room.
Was he a psychologist? Was he a psychologist or a therapist, or what was his background?
Was the most remarkable thing. He would say, I have no idea why this happened to me. I'm the most ordinary man to have had such an extraordinary experience.
Mm.
He had no psychological background. He said that he read less books than he wrote. I mean, he had editors, he had people helping him with
Sure.
editing of it, but you could Google it and you'll see, it's really a remarkable story. And I feel so grateful to have witnessed. There's a book written called Paradigm Shift, how this has really created a shift in the field of psychology and psychiatry. As Sid said, in the future, I don't know if this is going to be in our lifetime, but in the future, there will be one diagnosis: the misuse of the ability to think.
Mm.
As therapists, if people want to use their insurance benefits, we have to give them a label. We have to give them a diagnosis. And I am not a fan. I consider you're not either, Colleen. But, so I explained to them, I said, well, if you want your insurance to cover it, I'm going to have to give you this label. And we come up with the label together.
Yeah. I never understand that. I mean, if you want to go talk to somebody, you don't have to have a label to go talk to somebody. If you want to adjust your thinking or come up with a new perspective or bounce something off of somebody, it doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It actually means something's right with you. I never understand that. I don't.
Yes. And that's why the three principles this understanding was called Innate Health also, because it's looking at the health in people. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's not looking at what's wrong with people, because we all have thinking that goes in a negative direction. It doesn't mean that it's a truth. Our negative thinking is not truth. It's momentary. Thoughts come and go. So we're resilient. We bounce back. We have some, sad moments, depressed moments, anxious moments, upsetting moments. And then we clear our mind, we get quiet in our head, and we bounce back, right? We take a walk in nature and we're looking at, how gorgeous things are right now, and the weather is so beautiful. And so our thinking shifts all the time. It's always shifting. That's why, it doesn't make sense anymore to make a big deal about a negative moment.
Right. Absolutely. So let me ask you, your book, The Secret of Love, Unlock the Mystery, Unleash the Magic. What is the secret? Is there a secret?
The secret is right here. The secret is that we're always experiencing our own thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes everything, because people will go from blaming their partner. They'll go from blame to listening to understand. Yeah, you know what? I just realized I'm unplugged. I just have to, because I got a low battery signal. We're lit up again.
Okay, so what is love again? What's the mystery of love?
Well, the mystery behind everything is, like we were talking about, this unlimited intelligence and wisdom of the universe. And the secret of love is that we're experiencing our partner and everything in life. We're experiencing everything through our thoughts, through what we think, how we think, and it's looking real to us. Our experience looks like reality, but our experience in every single moment is coming through us. It's not coming at us. So we can't, it's really hard to blame the other person for our upset. Once we see that in its entirety, its entirety, that's the nature of principles, that it's true always, all the time, from birth to death. Every moment we are experiencing our own thinking, what's going on in here. So an example of a couple who might come to me and say, she would say, well, if he could stop, it could be a million things, right? If he could just stop spending so much money. Now, it looks to her like he's got to change his spending habits. It's not looking to her like, hey, whatever he's spending that she doesn't know about, she's not going to be upset because it's not in her head. I'm not saying, hide it from your partner. I'm just saying that it's always the way we're thinking about things. Now, if she said to him, help me understand how you think about finances, I must think so differently about finances, because in my worldview, if we spend more than we make, blah, 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 however she describes her worldview, without the upset and the emotion behind it, they can have a conversation about it. And he could say, well, I was raised blah, blah, blah. And she would say, oh, well, that could explain it, because I was raised this way and it's just really so scary for me. Blah, 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 where they could sit down and they could have a heart-to-heart conversation with how they see things differently without the blame attached to it.
And then they create the mediation, which is they come to an agreement. Mediation is not just about divorce, right? It can also be about keeping people together through mediating conversations so that they can actually do what you're talking about, which is come to an agreement that satisfies both of them, and neither one of them are right, neither one of them are wrong. Now they're just doing something that's working for them, right?
Absolutely. There's at least one chapter in the Secret of Love book about how people sit down, and if they can communicate with an open mind and an open heart, they will often come up with a third solution.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do, that's the beauty of two minds coming together, that they can come up with a perfectly fine solution that they would not come to if either one of them was left to their own devices.
No, because they'd be too busy blaming and being right. That they never solved the problem. You just stay stuck in it. There's no solution in being, I always say there's no solution in digging in your heels. Like, where are we going with that?
Yeah.
Then someone acquiesces, but now they're resentful. So we've really gotten nowhere, So, and you said you're the founder of Mystery School, which is a 6-week online course. What is it Mystery of the Universe? Mystery of Life? What is it?
Yeah. It's all online. It's a 6-week course, and it's almost like a book club in a way, because my recommendation is to choose any of the 6 books by Sid Banks, and or listen to his lectures. And then every day I send they'll submit questions that they have, and every day I send them a 8 to 10 minute video where I'm answering one of their questions, or talking about the theme of the week. So each week, the 6 weeks build upon one another so that the understanding grows and they start seeing it in their life. That's what I love about it, a consistent 6 weeks. And then once a week, we get together for 60 to 90 minutes, depending upon how many people are in the course. So they don't, because it's people from all over the world. So even though I'm keeping it to a small group, it's still, people who are interested in learning more about the three principles. So they could be coming from Portugal or the UK, and there's a time difference. So I'm going to do it at a time when it satisfies most people, but other people will just have to see the recording.
Sure.
And there's a private Facebook group where we can all communicate with one another. So it's really like learning and deepening our understanding of how life works, how it really works, so that we don't have to, it's easier, we don't have to be bothered so much. We don't have to be upset and angered. We can navigate so much better through life's ups and downs, because look, COVID is a perfect example that life happens and then we get to navigate around it. And how do we do that in the best possible way?
Right. It's how you respond to what you can't control, really. But response is everything. It's kind of how you respond to your partner who you can't control, right? That matters. It's how you respond to COVID, which you can't control, but your response matters. It's either going to take you down that path of ease, a little more happiness and joy. Not perfect for any, but you're not going to be going down that path of angst and frustration and hurt and anger. Makes a difference.
Absolutely. And I still have moments where I get sad, but they're moments. They're not drawn out to years. And I'm not dwelling on something that I realize is temporary, because that's the natural flow of life. It's only when we dam a thought up, when we dwell on it and think we have to figure it out, that we get stuck. Otherwise, there is a natural flow. Same with, COVID won't be here forever, or
most
right?
things that come leave. Even human beings. You have a partner, they can pass. You have children, they grow up. Do you know what I mean? So all thoughts, they come, but they will leave. And there's a permanence in flow. Things don't stay as they are. The summer comes, the summer goes, right? You know what I mean? And then the summer comes, and so there's a permanence in change, and change can be a really good thing. I think it's hard for a lot of people to understand that train of thought. I had not heard of Sid Banks before. That's why I was asking about his background. And I think it's kind of refreshing that we can have somebody outside of the mental health field, and sometimes the psychobabble, so to speak, and give us just basic layman's terms about how life can work for us. Do you know what I mean?
One of Sid's books is called The Enlightened Gardener. And it's really, a lot of his books, actually all of them except for The Missing Link, all the others are really stories. But within the stories, they're fiction. They're really fun stories. But within the story, there are such gems of wisdom. You can't believe what's in there when you open one up. But so one of his books is called The Enlightened Gardener, and it's about a psychological conference. And these psychologists are walking in the garden, and they start talking to the gardener. The gardener, must be Sid Banks, and the gardener is giving them all these wisdom, all this wisdom. And so they're hanging out with the gardener.
I love that.
Conference. But there were three in the book Paradigm Shift that talks about this evolution. There were three psychologists who initially heard Sid and brought it into the world of psychology. And, it's in the world of business. It's in the world of, I'll give you a website. It's 3PGC. It stands for the number 3PGC, 3 principles, a global community. So there are people from all over the world, from all different walks of life, and they're talking about their experience with um, listening to what, just under trying to understand what Sid was talking about. And it's so simple. It's so simple, but yet so profound, and the brain wants to complicate things. So
Yeah.
a lot of brains would reject it for being too simple.
It
Yeah.
can't
Look
work.
at the effects it has. Look at that simplicity has such enormous effects for people.
I think sometimes people don't trust in simplicity. They're looking like, well, that's not going to work, right? That's too easy. Like change, if any kind of change, it has to be hard and painful, right? And that's really not the case.
Right.
Is Sid S-I-D or S-Y-D, Sid, for his spelling of his name?
Of Sydney?
Yeah, is it S-I?
N-E-Y, S-Y-D. And if you go to sydbanks.com, so sydbanks.com, that's where you'll get like 20-minute videos, and all of his books are there. It's a website that people maintain after his passing. And yeah, so.
Well, that's a lot. I mean, it's, I'm glad, it really only takes that one moment for someone to have like an aha. And as much as, you were saying, well, I'm done. And then you end up going and it's in that one moment. And what I'm actually hoping for in doing my YouTube channel is that someone's going to stumble on here, listen to what you have to say or somebody else, and it be that aha moment for that person. Because somebody might not know about what it is what moved you to change. We have a very similar story, you and I. I was a math teacher and then became a therapist. So through my own frustration with my own life, not being in a space I wanted to really occupy, and not knowing how to shift myself, and finding somebody that really helped shift me, and then I was like, wow, there's other things I want to be doing here, and that I'm really interested when you kind of get really honest with yourself, what like matters to you. And so it's interesting that you were the art teacher, I was the math teacher, and we ended up on this kind of path, right? And which also says you're open to being on a different path, and which I'm hoping that people who stumble on these interviews will, in conversations, if you will be able to say, what path do I want to be on? Is my path working? And so, yeah.
You read my mind, Colleen. That's so great when you said an aha moment, because the thing I was searching for in my mind was that people change automatically when they have an insight.
Mm-hmm.
They see something deep within themselves. It's like they don't have to work at it. I was working recently with a man who was getting divorced due to his alcoholism. And he admitted that, yes, he was drinking too much and he was working too many hours and he was stressing himself out. And he had such an enormous insight. This doesn't happen for everybody who obviously, looks into the 3 principles or listens to Sid, but it does happen on occasion where alcohol stopped. He not only has not had a drink, he has not had an urge for a drink. Once he thought about it twice. He was passing a package store. He's been to parties. He had a person close to him who said, well, he could tell she really wanted her evening glass of wine and she wasn't. He said, go ahead. It's very kind of you to not drink in front of me, but you can drink in front of me. Honestly, it doesn't affect me. And it really did not. I mean, that was an enormous shift. And that came from a huge insight. That's the only way. You can't do a shift like that with willpower.
No, the I try method doesn't really work, right? It doesn't. I'm going to try to lose weight. I'm going to try to give up drinking, which almost sets yourself up for permission not to. Right? I'm going to try to get in shape. Oh, right.
You need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's the narrative you give yourself. And so he had a real shift, which means it's almost thoughtless at that point that he knows where he's going.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing to hear. And it's, that's when these kind of these principles, or living life in a bigger way, a more honest way. I always say a kind way can open up so many things for you. That kindness towards others and self, like, it can be a game changer.
A game changer. Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you, Lori. It was really good to learn about something I didn't know very much about. So it will make me want to go and look at some of Sid Banks' work, and see what else is out there with, some of his other teachings, and kind of read. So Paradigm Shift is his book.
No, that was written by Jack Pransky. Jack is a psychologist. He wasn't one of the first to hear
Okay.
realize, the ramifications for the field of psychology. But Jack Pransky, Pransky, Jack's written quite a number of books about the three principles.
Okay.
People really like his book called Somebody Should Have Told Us. That was written, that title came from one of his clients who said, why didn't anybody ever teach us this? Why didn't anybody ever tell us this?
Right?
Somebody should have told us.
That's a great title for a book. Well, I'm going to put all this stuff in the details. So when somebody comes on, I'll put your contact information, and hopefully people can reach out to you if they want further information on the three principles, or read your book, The Secret of Love, Unlock the Mystery, Unleash the Magic, or they can get in touch with you to do your mystery school, your 6-week online class. So you have lots going on there and a lot to offer people. And I hope people take advantage of that. And I'm grateful for your time and your wisdom. And it was really a pleasure to speak with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I really enjoyed this, Colleen.
And since we're so close, we'll have to stay in touch, since we're not too far from each other.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Laura. Have a great day, and thank you for all you do for everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Colleen.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.